Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford, and this is another quick report on an archaeological discovery relevant to those with Norse and Viking interests. A discovery of a new bunch of guldgubbar, which are interesting little artifacts of the pre-Viking Age into early Viking Age that has been recently made in Norway. I start this video by thanking my Patreon supporters who help make it possible for me to make a living teaching subjects of my expertise in the world's most beautiful places, and to everyone who buys my books, thank you so much. Thanks to Patreon supporter Kate Palmer for writing in about this. She always has great information about runes and archaeology in continental Scandinavia. We'll have an interview actually with her about her research interests in runes soon on Patreon. So what are guldgubbar in the first place? They're these paper-thin golden wafers. I like the term wafer because something about these things reminds me of those little wafers you can get at, King Soopers or something, right? They're petit collier, little biscuits with a little chocolate kit on them, Something about their shape and size makes me think of those, especially because they have images of people on them. Typically, a man, a woman, or both. So some of the sort of classic examples of guldgubbar have what appears to be an embracing couple. Now, these are often found in post holes for buildings, quite likely in some kind of sacral function. So buildings that seem to have had perhaps some kind of temple-like function. I'm always a little hesitant about using the word temple here, but some religious function. And the new find, which comes from Vingrum, which is near Lillehammer in eastern Norway, around Lake Mjøsa, it contains 35 new guldgubbar. The site looks like it might have had a sacral purpose, potentially been a temple or something like that, depending on what word you want to use there. And sure enough, these guldgubbar are found in the post holes. So the area has been under excavation since 1993, but this is just something new that's come out of an old site that fairly often happens in archaeology or paleontology, as I've learned with paleontology. The ones that are in this particular find do depict couples, and the women in these depictions typically have a really distinctive hairstyle that it's kind of like, I don't know, like an Ariana Grande, like, high ponytail, but with a big loop in it, kind of a big knot in it. It's pretty distinctive to this period. Often thought to be a probably a high status woman's haircut for this period, which is, by the way, about 550 to 800 AD. Although gold per se is difficult to date, and it's other contextual information that helps to date these things. There's a lot of speculation that's been going on for a long time, and speculation tends to turn into people saying it like it's fact, that these depictions of couples are specifically the couple Freyr and Gerður, right? The god and his Jotun, anti-goddess, quote-unquote giant bride. But there's no particular reason to think that it's them specifically, right? There's no identifying feature of Freyr here or of Gerður there, or whatever an identifying feature of the very vaguely described Gerður would be. I'm not exactly sure where that got started. There's no reason to say it can't be Freyr and Gerður, but it's, I think, probably more likely, and other people have said this too, that it's maybe some kind of a marriage custom, right? That these little wafers represent a couple that's getting married and they're being placed in particular places or perhaps at particular times to increase their luck, right? The good fortune of the married couple. These, by the way, are often really, really small, like 1 centimeter or smaller. And there's an interesting connection to another topic that we've been talking about on this channel recently, which is the bracteates, like the ones that Christer Vassus recently came on to discuss, recently discovered at Vindele, which include the famous one that says in Elder Frulark, he is Odin's man. Those bracteates take a fair amount of gold, and it's not impossible that at this time in Scandinavia, it was becoming harder to get gold from the south. And that having, you know, fewer sources of gold locally, these sort of replace bracteates as a worn object. I'm not exactly sure how you'd wear it because it's just a little thing of gold. You know, maybe you could sew it into something somehow as some kind of a status symbol that nevertheless does not take as much of an expensive precious metal. I'm going to give you a quick word from my friends and partners at Grimfrost. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk a little bit more about gold, just an interesting little snippet about it to round this video out. So it's my good fortune to be here in Colorado in early October as the aspens are changing, and so I've got great gold behind me. And it got me thinking about something interesting about gold in Old Norse, which is that it is consistently referred to as red, right? Red gold. This is actually not restricted to Old Norse. You see this in Old English and Old High German too, for example. And that has led to some speculation over the years. There's some kind of material reason for it, like the gold has a higher copper content or something like that. But if you look at gold from the Norse world, it's not particularly reddish to our eyes. And it's interesting to note that there really does not seem to be a color category yellow yet. Oh, bear with me a second. I've talked about color in a lot of places on my channel and on Simon Roper's channel, here and there elsewhere. It's my doctoral dissertation. But I think that it's worth making this point again in a context where I'm talking about gold. Human beings who aren't colorblind or otherwise visually impaired perceive the same differences between colors, right? You can see the green of this pine tree is different from the green of this hummingbird wing here, right? But if I asked you to call them both one color, like use the most basic one-word color term you could, you'd probably say green for both. You can see a difference, but you don't categorize it differently. So in some languages, including, I believe, based on an extensive study of all the sources in Old Norse that ever mention the color of anything, there's not actually a color category for yellow yet. That develops later in the Scandinavian languages. Instead, red includes yellow as part of its category. You can talk about yellow, you can make it clear that what you mean is yellow, and I think the word they use for that is bleker. But bleker, I think, is thought of as sort of a kind of red. Red is the warm colors. It focally, centrally means red, but it also includes the color of gold, the color of an aspen leaf, the color of the sun, the color of an egg yolk. So it's just a fun little side note that I thought I would throw in there about gold while talking about golden things in a golden environment. And for now, I want to thank Patreon and thank those of you who have bought books and audiobooks and anything else that helps me pay the bills. And from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.